Hi everyone, my name is Bruce and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Bruce.
Thanks Nev for sharing and thanks for being my sponsor and friend and thanks for everyone for being here. Because I know for a fact that if it wasn't for everyone in these rooms, past, present and future people, I wouldn't be clean and sober today. And yeah, I suppose like I was chatting with Neville last night about it and like I've been around a while. This is not my first 4-year share, by the way. But I'll get to that. I relapsed just after my first 5 years of recovery in these rooms, and yeah, I'll get to that when it comes. And but I was chatting in there. It's like a lot of you guys know my story, and you know who I am. I've built friendships and relationships in the rooms, and we share, and you know a little bit about me. But for those that don't, I'll share a little bit of background. I grew up in Skopje. I was born in Boksburg. That's where I think all my problems started.
Yeah.
But I was about 2 months, and my parents sort of moved down here and bought a house, which they still live in today. I went to school here. I went to school in Durban, high school in Durban. And it was small town, little life. Not much to do, but beach. You know, that's what it was all about for me in the beginning. It's surfing, skateboarding. You know, small little crowd. I mean, we had one class. It was like I think it was like 18 of us in one class. Not like today where you have in one standard or grade or whatever it is today. It's like there's three standards or three classes in a standard or four standard. You know, small little town syndrome. And my group of friends were. It wasn't like we were like it was like only 3 of us or 4 of us. It was like a full 18 of us. You know. And I was the only child, also part of my problem. I wouldn't say I was spoiled. I think Charlene will disagree. But I wouldn't say I was spoiled, but I never lacked anything. And I always got what I wanted. But yeah, I suppose. But I always remember, as a young kid, I always like craved more. I craved more a disease, I think I call it the disease of moreism. Like I always wanted something more or something different. I always wanted the excitement. There were two families just down the road from where we lived, or where my parents lived, or I lived there back then. And it was a family. It was mom and dad and a family of 5. And the other family was a family of four kids and mom and dad. And I was always at their house. Like I was never at home. I was always at their house, being a part of their family, until I was asked, okay, Bruce, you actually need to leave now. Like 7 days in a row is too much, you know. And then what I'd do is I'd walk out that house and walk to the next one. My dad used to say to me, you know, you only come home you like to get clothes, you know, like you're always out and you still live here. That's pretty much like my earliest sort of memories of searching for something, you know, like to be a part of something. And you know, grade, I think it was class 1, class 2, then it was standard 1 back then. In class 2, I was told that I needed to repeat the grade. I still remember the word. It was weekend. I couldn't spell it. And like my parents, I remember them being so like angry, you know, like how come it takes a whole year for you to realize this? And to the teacher, I know that today, but I remember them as if they were being angry at me. and like I disappointed them, and I remember being very fearful. Like it was a real huge thing. Like I remember going back to that same teacher, same class, but with a whole group of different friends, or became friends, but different guys. Like we knew that age. I didn't mix with lower grades or higher grades. You mix with your grade, or your standard. And I was ashamed and I was embarrassed. And I remember spending the whole of December holidays going to the special teacher to teach me between an E and a 3 and all that crap. And and I can use that. I use that as an excuse for a very long time. To that I was sort of different and I needed to achieve. I needed to be better. I didn't want to have that feeling of insecurity, and I wanted to be looked at in a positive light, and not a like, oh, he's got a problem light. And I suppose that's how it all started, like the chapter 5 is pretty much explains it all to me, of how it works. And it says in there to be vigorously honest. And I see how my pattern started when I could cheat. I could manipulate situations. I could get away with things by telling stories and lies, and how that started was I started to realize that, geez, this stuff that I'm doing, I've already done. I've got the books at home. I'm repeating the year. So that night I would go and do the work that I was supposed to do the following day that night. And I slowly became a very low average kid to becoming first in my class. And I saw nothing wrong with it. Moved on to the following year, and all I did was I got my friends that were in the grade that went on, I got their books. And I continued. I realized that in sports, which I was pretty good at, I got affirmation and attention and positive feedback from, and I gripped onto that. And I was because I was kept back, I was a little bit bigger than the rest of the crowd. So I don't say I was a bully, but I didn't take any shit. So like I usually got my way in, like I'm bowling first, or I'm picking first in the touch rugby game or something like that, So, and my friends in the grade would also like realize that, and whoever was picking on them, I would approach them nicely and tell them to stop doing it, and I use those situations, like there's many examples of it, but I use that situation, and I used any advantage I could get to better how I felt about myself, and I carried that through. My parents and family are drinkers. They can party, and I remember I learned to drive when I was about 10 years old, and I would drop my parents at the pub, and I would go and pick up all my friends and go to the beach, surf for a couple hours, drop them all off, and then pick my parents and drive them home sober. That was like, I learned to break the rules at a very young age. My parents' next door neighbor was Chris Skuman, and he's one of the ex-High Court advocates. Yeah, and I used to drive him around town at a very young age, and there were no consequences. There was I didn't feel that I thought I could get away with anything, and I remember, so moving on, Standard 5 became prefects, and I was, prefect, and we used to go down to the Wimpy on the beach, which is now John Dory's, and we used to have a jawl and a skit and an ice cream, and with all of us together eating a burger, whatever the case, played some rugby, trying to kiss a girl around the corner, all that stuff. And I got called into the headmaster's office, a friend of mine and myself, and we were asked if we threw ice cream at Fora Marburg's car, which is the owner of Wimpy. And we said no. And I remember like being confused about all this, you know, like we didn't. But we got caned 6 times. The first time I ever got a hiding, like a caning, and I cried a lot. And I remember being sent home for a week because of this, and our monitor badges were taken away. About 3 days later, we got called back, and they apologized because it wasn't us. It was 2 boys from Uncle Mars Primary School, a little town down the road here. And what happened with that was, like, we got our monitor badges back, but for some reason, the prettiest girl in the class all of a sudden was interested in me. You know, because now I was like a bit of a rebel, you know, and she didn't, you know, like I cried a little bit inside the office from the caning, but the drama around it was so like hectic that like we got attention from it, you know, and that's when I learned to be a little bit of a rebel and do things outside of the scope of being just on the straight and narrow. And anyway, so yeah, I suppose that was pretty much around about the first time my parents would like give us a beer, and I didn't like it at first. You know, I was so focused on sports and school and that kind of aspect of my life at the time, and having an odd sip of my dad's drip beer every now and again wasn't attractive to me. Until someone said to me, Bruce, hey, listen, your parents are pretty cool with the drinking story. Can you organize us some dope for a concert that they're going to have on the beach here? And I remember, again, organizing these little juice bottles, and it was all this stuff. And we went down to the beach and we drank it for the first time, or like properly for the first time. And my friends spat it out. Like we forgot to buy the mix. I don't know. I thought that's how you do it. But I drank the whole juice bottle. I was sick for days. I woke up, there used to be a little fountain in the swimming pool there. And the pump used to start at 6 in the morning, and I was lying inside there, and I got wet, and I woke up, and everyone was looking for me. And I was sick for days. But when I got back to school on the Monday, I remember how like everyone was talking to me, and yes, bro, you were on your ear, you were such a jaw. It was like you know, and I remember the beginning part of it. I don't remember the rest of it, but I remember how it freed. Like everyone, it was just like I could talk to girls, and you know, that happy-go-lucky feeling, you know. And for a long time, I didn't drink again, you know. But I remember the attention again, you know, that affirmation and what I received from doing something naughty. I mean, I had no idea where it would lead, you know. I don't think any of us growing up expected to go through so much trauma and physical harm and pain. You know, the reading talks about pain. One of my ex-sponsors used to say that I'm a pain seeker, and I believe that. You know, like it's familiar, it's comfortable. I've lived with it for so long. How can anything be different? And anyway, back to that, the whole story. So I got a scholarship to go to a high school in Durban and became a boarder there. My first 2 days there, I ran away, went to the Musgrave Centre and called my mom. And I was crying on the phone. Mom, this is the worst decision in the world. Everyone hates me here. There got so many rules. And it was a pretty intense boarding school. It was very, very traditionalized, very, very pro rata, time constraints, and it felt like it was too much for me. And I remember getting a tap on my shoulder and I turned around, and there were all the head boys and head deputy heads of the school and about 10 other prefects. And there I am in my little little day wear, and they told me the headmaster of the boarding school there was actually a guy that lived in Scotland as well. And he turned around and said to me, listen, go back to the boarding school, I'll talk to you later. And yes, and I didn't want to do it. Anyway, so I remember he phoned my mother, and my mom wanted to come to the school, and he was talking to me about it. And he said to me, listen, I have to cane you, because if I don't, the Oaks are going to fuck you up with the rest of the boarding, because that's how serious it was. And I didn't get it, Like, I didn't want to conform to their rules. It was just not natural to be like that, Like, I went from going. I remember the first day I went there. I had this long blonde hair after December. They shaved my head off like I was in the army, like number one. And it was all like, anyway. But I chose that. I wanted to go to the school. I wanted to become a Springbok rugby player. I wanted to do, my goal was to do this. And anyway, I was told by him just to take it on the chin, take the canes, and get involved. And do what I'm told. And I did. And it slowly changed for me in boarding school. I remember it was amazing. Like, that school and everything was amazing. Until I got to standard 9 matric, and it was the time to shine or the time to not. And I remember rugby selections coming up, and I was playing first team in standard 8 there already. My second year of first team was in standard 9, and I made Natal Schools, and I made SA Academy for rugby, and my matric year came, and I thought, this is it. This is where it all starts, and I'm going to make SA A side, and I'm going to go play against France and England and Wales and Scotland this year. And what happened was I didn't. Someone else was chosen in my school, and it was a guy. It was a black guy that played second team for our school rugby. And it felt like my world had crashed. Like, I had literally no understanding of why that could happen to me. Like, it doesn't make sense. I've played SA schools in Natal the year before, and this like playing second team, and I didn't understand why. I remember how things changed for me then. Like, I mean, this was my goal I didn't drink. I didn't go partying. I mean, I think we drank every now and again, but it wasn't my style, Like, I didn't want to be. I wanted to be a SA rugby player, and that was my life. And what happened was, I went back to after the trials, and we went and played Craven Week and everything like that. I came back and I grabbed this guy from the second team rugby field, and I put him on the first team rugby field, and I bullied him in front of everyone. I was deputy head boy of the school and deputy head of the boarding school, and because of that, those actions I chose to do, I was demoted, taken my prefix badge taken away, all my privileges taken away, and I remember sitting there all alone. And my girlfriend at the time, I broke up with her just because I felt like it. 2.5 or whatever it was back then, a 3-year relationship. I just wasn't. How my understanding, my thinking back then was, why would you want to be with me? I'm not good enough. I remember going to the school psychologist, and I'm sitting me down and talking to me, and I remember just telling him just to fucking leave me alone. And I had my attitude. I lost all my friends. The form in the boarding school was so tight that they would sit me down like 2 or 3 nights a week, and we would talk about it. And I just didn't want to, like I was so embarrassed. Like I wasn't a part of, like how can this happen? Anyway, so I managed to scrape. I went from being like an A student to a B student around. And I scraped matric. I wanted to do physiotherapy. You needed straight A's in matric. My standard nine was all straight A's. I even took Zulu in standard 9 in matric, just so in case I dropped a grade, an average there, that my Zulu would pick me up and I could still become a doctor. And I could barely get into varsity with the marks that I got. Anyway, I left school, and I remember that December, and I drank a lot. Like I remember how it made me feel better. I manipulated women, I chased women, and it didn't matter who they were, whatever they, it just, I was just on a downward spiral of pain, and alcohol at that time made me feel better. And I remember not drinking all the time, not just, just partying, drinking, going to varsity the following year and realizing, I'll just do an IT course because everyone does IT, and my dad's in IT and he makes money doing it, and I'll just do IT. All my goals and dreams out the window, and realizing it wasn't as easy as I thought. So then I would be partying and playing rugby on the sideline and doing those type of things, and the things that made me feel better than actually doing what I should be doing, and that's studying. I remember fortunately getting these documents with headers on it and typing them out and posting them to my dad to say that I've passed, and meanwhile failing and flunking out. But the lifestyle that I sort of created was more of a party lifestyle, and I enjoyed that more. I suppose a couple of years back from that, further on from there, I was working in the IT industry, just getting by, just doing as much as I could, not really enjoying it, living to drink and to survive. Like I couldn't wait for the weekend so I could spend what I wanted to do, and that's just a relief. A couple of years down that line, I suppose it just progressed. It got worse and worse. I was binge drinking for 3 days, and not going to work, missing days, lying about it, not being honest at all. The friends that I grew up in this town with, friends that I grew up in Durban with, didn't want to be around me anymore. Became very lonely. was drinking with people that I didn't even like. It's just because it was the only thing I knew. You know, I started getting a nickname of being called Brewski because I always had a beer in my hand. Couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything without a beer in my hand. It was my life. Then I became Brewski Dopper because I was always had a brewski in my hand. I was always doped. Wherever I was, wherever I went. I mean, it got to a stage where I couldn't even go to a bar without being drunk because it took too long to get social and have a personality. You know, friends of mine or acquaintances in the bar would say to me, "Oh, you know, your personality is at the bottom of a glass." And my parents picked it up. I mean, I was drinking with my parents at that stage, and we were partying with family, and they cut me out. You know, I would remember phoning them when I was a bit short on money and saying, "Hey, listen, you at the bar? Can come and have a beer with you?" And I could hear they were at the bar, and they would say, "No, we're at home." You know, I mean, being in a small town, I promise you, you think your parents or your friends and family don't know, and there was a problem, and I didn't see it. I just thought everyone did it. You know, alcohol to me was not a problem. Everyone else was a problem. You couldn't accept me for the way I was, and if you didn't want to, you can fuck right off. Okay, and that was my attitude. My nature and attitude just was destroyed. Until a point, I mean, I met my daughter's mother during this whole episode, and I remember my mom saying to me, "How did you meet?" "No, we met at the pub." And my mom went, "Oh my God." And yeah, like a typical addict style, we moved in very, very soon. You know, she fell pregnant, and Summer was born. And like, they talk about responsibility in your life. And that was one of my big realizations in awakening through the steps, is that how much I lacked it. I thought responsibility was paying the rent, making sure she had nappies and food and a bed to sleep in. It's only part of it. But about a year in, my mom called me and she said, "Listen, Bruce, you know, Melissa Summer's mom can't take this anymore. You know, like, you're never there." Bullshit, I am. You know, like, you're never around. You're always in the pubs, and I want to show you something. She went through her phone, and the only photo she had of me and Summer was on the day, and she's already a year old. Was on the day she was born. And I said, "No, bullshit. You know, never willing to accept the truth and the realization of the facts." My dad would say to me, "Bruce, you know that your problem is that you can't just have 3 drinks." I say, "Of course I can. You can't stop after 3 drinks. No problem. For a whole week, Monday to Thursday, whole week, at the bar, have 2 drinks, not 3, 2 drinks. Go home. Can't do that on a Friday though, because that's Joel out." But in my mind, I'd proven my father wrong. And I lived by proving people to be wrong and me to be right. And however selfish it was in that way. the consequences. I eventually started to realize, my boss would tell me, I was in the IT industry for, I don't know, including recovery time, about 15 years. I went into treatment. I was about 12 years in at the same job, and my boss would tell me, you know what, Bruce, we can't do this anymore. I can't cover. Gordon was this amazing boss. He used to cover for me. Eventually, he told me, he said, I can't cover for you anymore because your peers don't want to cover for you anymore. Like, I can't make excuses for you anymore, and they don't want to do your part. And you're employed to actually work 5 days a week and not 2. But he would say to me, but the 2 days that you are here, you do 7 days worth of work. But I didn't hear the first part. I've heard the first 2 parts, the 7 days. So I justified to take the 3 days off a week, And eventually it got too much that I remember phoning my mom. I was fucked. Sundays for me were lying on the couch with a bucket next to me. By this stage, Summer's mom had left. That episode happened when I remember how these little awakenings happen when you're in treatment, and how God's always been there, and God's in your life. And I remember coming home, not remember coming home, but I got home and I destroyed the house. Summer was still in a cot in our room and the door was broken down. I woke up in a pile of feces, blood, and piss, naked around the toilet bowl. And I remember inklings of the night before, and I remember going, fuck. And what have I done? Are they alive? That's the binge drinker, Bruce's. And sitting up and realizing and just saying, just out loud, just say, God, please stop. I don't want to hurt them anymore. And it wasn't even 3 weeks after that she left. She was gone. Why the fuck did she go? Why is she doing this to me? Forgot the pain and the shit that I was sitting in and lying in. All about me. Okay, I'll show you. I'll pack all your stuff. I'll find you a flat. You can fly it. Because then it'll give me an excuse to really do a good job of it during the week. Best thing that ever happened to me. Wasn't even 3 months later, I found myself in treatment. The day before I phoned the treatment center, I was holding onto my tire trying to buckle it on my car with the phone here next to my ear. And I'm going, Mom, phone Gordon, tell him I've hit the curb. I can't make it to work. Sundays were my recovery days because I couldn't move. I couldn't see anyone because I would be shaking so much. Would try and eat something and vomit. Bucket lying, piles of dishes in the sink, molded. The garden. Someone would come over and I'll take that whole pile like this and just throw it out the window into the bush. It wasn't a garden, it was a bush. I was squatting. Anyway, went to treatment and first of all I asked for help. Couldn't get away with it anymore. Asked for help because I knew I was done with the lying Brewski Dorper bullshitter. No one would believe me anymore. Couldn't face anyone, couldn't believe, broken inside, didn't want to admit it. So full of fear that it was blanked, it was gone. Didn't know what that was. Didn't understand who I was, who I'd become. I remember asking for help. I phoned my mom and said, listen, this is what's going on. and I could hear something in a voice for the first time I hadn't heard for years. And there was something that I always I tried to hold on to, was something that I hadn't seen. Like, I remember going to Summer's mom and saying, "Listen, I'm going to treatment," and there was a light in her face and a light in my mom and dad, and they were like, "Oh my God, thank God, this is like I see that now." But it was so unrecognizable for me at the time. Like, it was strange. Like, something, but just by saying I'm going to go and get help, but like, now people are like, And it wasn't that I had not tried to stop before. My problem is I couldn't stay stopped. I'd go 3 weeks, everyone happy, joyous, and free around me. I'm sitting there fucking miserable. To a point where Summer's mom would come to me with a big jug of wine and say, "Listen, drink this because I can't take that miserable look on your face anymore." Reality, yeah. No solution, no replacement. Anyway, I went to treatment, knew nothing about 12 steps. I thought Alcoholics Anonymous was for these old guys that sat around in a circle in a church complaining about their wives. Anyway, sorry, man. Thought maybe it is. Yeah, I suppose for most of us, I don't know, the 12 steps were introduced to me. My first question there was, what does alcoholism, the disease of alcoholism, mean to me? And I was asked to try and do examples and explain it and everything like that. And I remember writing this down, and I was like, fuck, it's mad. Just the first question, I was like, that can't be real. Is that me? And slowly coming out of this deluded state of mind and what I thought the world was and the insanity and, oh my God, don't tell me God. Because, geez, I've got some experiences with churches, but nothing against religion. But I've always somehow gone places and seen the spiritual side of things and always searched for something. I wanted, to be, I go to the Wild Coast and I look at these mountains and the waterfalls flowing into the ocean. I go, wow, man, this is great. It's got to make it better. But yeah, always trying to, I've always looked for something, and I mean, from going to families, trying to be a part of that, and going to treatments and seeing people smile and say, yeah, okay, well, this is like a cool holiday camp. Let's get going. It was tough. It was hard. But what I learned early on in the rooms and in A is that I'm not alone anymore. I realized that I'm around like-minded people that I could speak my mind and how mad and crazy things were and are, and the thoughts in my head. The act next to me is having the same thoughts and had the same experience, similar experiences. And for the first time, I felt not judged. I felt for the first time I actually don't have to prove myself to anyone. I don't have to be that SA rugby player anymore. The first time I don't have to be the top of my class or pretend to work for Bill Gates, which I did for 3 weeks in treatment until I had to own it. Josh was a lawyer. Well, I work for Bill Gates. Yeah, you have to be better, I could just be myself, and I spent 4 months in treatments, and I remember completing the steps, and I mean, the AA Big Book was the first book I actually really read back to front. I would do school assignments and just do as much as I possibly could so I could go and do what I actually wanted. And for the first time, I actually had to do that. And I realized how much clearer things were coming and how painful things were. I mean, step 4 for me, step 1 was my first breaking point. I think, I mean, I was broken when I came to you. I had no idea how broken I was. I weighed 43 kgs. But I would fuck anyone up. You know? Mad. Go away. You know, seriously, like that, it was stark how powerful the disease in the mind is. And the first book I read, the first thing I ever accomplished properly without cheating. I think the only reason I really did it is because there were no right or wrong answers. It was just my experience. And the only thing I really was told was just to be rigorously honest. You know, and I did. It was hard. Like I couldn't remember everything. I spell like I'm not a very intelligent person. My spelling is bad. I don't know how Caleb ever bloody got to read my sentences because they didn't make sense. You know, but I did it. You know, and it got better. By the second, halfway through the second book, my writing was pretty good. You know, it was pretty. You could read it and you could spell some words, and you know, I could even do abbreviations. Like instead of writing the whole word higher power, I just do HP. Check out good I am. You know, and discovering God. Like, I mean, a God of my understanding. Not the God that I was taught, not the God that I was told to understand. And not the spiritual aspect and the like-mindedness of just trying to be kind and loving. Like I lost that. You know, I didn't know how to love myself. Others around me loved me enough and loved me quite a lot. It hurt to be given my reality in order to learn who I was. Anyway, left treatment. Realizing I've got a purpose now. A purpose of helping others. It's the only thing I need to do. Trust God, clean house, help others. All I knew, I was very... Sorry. Only thing I knew was was to drink. Now, what did? I was told to go to meetings, get a sponsor. Well, I had a sponsor already, but go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps. And that's what I did. 9 meetings a week for about 2 years. Then I met Sheldon. Then I only did 3 meetings a week. Sheldon definitely became my higher power. 8 years down the line, I don't know how she's done it, but she's still with me. And she's shown me a lot of love. In these almost 9 years of a relationship, people couldn't stand to be around me more than 2 hours. I think something's changed. You know, a little bit. She 13-stepped me. She asked me more than twice to marry her. I gave in on the third. No, it's been. I wish I had more time to talk about actual recovery, and you know, it was amazing. Recovery is not easy, but I can tell you now, if you put your best foot forward and you work the steps, it's endless. You know, I got to about 5 years, and I lost my way. Certain things happened. I was driving a boat. I went from IT to driving a boat to becoming a landscaper to doing a construction company. expeditions in the Transkei. I've had many jobs. Doesn't matter. Like, and I've taken many choices and not knowing the outcomes. But all I've ever known was that I know that I've got these rooms and I've got the trust, and in these rooms, and that's all I need. Um, um, at 5 years, I was driving a boat and I flipped the boat, and an English gentleman, an older Englishman, died in the water. And I can't explain to you how I'm supposed to be this guy in recovery, being responsible. I've got 12 people on the boat with my lives in their hands. And why would God do this to me? And I was angry. And I didn't talk about it. Not to the right people. I didn't know how to deal with it, and his wife Helen still contacts me today. He was an engineer for Formula One, retired, and he worked for McLaren, and she sent me pictures of how they did a memorial. McLaren did a memorial for him, and all this stuff, and how she's moved on and she's remarried, and his kids from his first marriage, they're still in contact, and it's okay. You know, I would never understand why that's, and what I have learned about recovery is when things like these happen, is how you deal with them. It's not why God, why me anymore. It's why not you. Um, you know, I didn't deal with that well. You know, I had my 5 years of sobriety. I went away on an expedition to the Transkei, and I drank. And the worst thing I did is I didn't get drunk. I was offered a drink. I had no inclination of drinking. I was literally given a drink, offered a drink. I said, why not? I had no thought of it prior, nothing. I was still going to meetings. I was still talking to my sponsor. I was still trying to do the right things. I was still doing this, but I just couldn't. Something was wrong, and I still don't understand this. But what I've learned is that it will be revealed in time, when I'm ready. When God is ready to reveal it. Sorry, not when I'm ready. When God is ready to reveal it, and I'm awake enough to receive it. And I remember drinking this, and I drank the next day, and I drank the next day, and I drank the next day, and I came home, and I kept it a secret for an entire year in these rooms. I lied to everyone in these rooms. I kept it a secret. I shared my 6-year sobriety in the Pennington meeting. I lied to you guys. I've apologized. I'm sorry. But what that did to me in those 6 years is it made me mad. Not being honest about it. To a point where Geraldine moved out. She moved out because she couldn't live with this angry person anymore. This resentful, blaming herself. That she had to move out to save her sobriety. And when I became honest of it, because I relapsed again within a relapse, about a year and a half later, a year later. And I became honest about it, and Geraldine turned around and said, that explains everything. It's amazing how dishonesties can affect people. and I forget that, you know. It's like I saw how much damage and how much hurt I'd caused everyone in my step 4, and the many step 4s that I've done after that, and I didn't, you know, like. And my promise to God was to not hurt anyone anymore. And I've had to re-promise that, you know, and I've had to restart the steps, and I did the steps again, and I've managed to stay sober again for another 4 years in recovery. My relationship with my daughter she's become this little woman. I had nothing to do with that. You know, she's never known her father drunk. You know, if I could repeat all the pain just so that she could see that again, I would do it. You know, like that's what it's about. Is to have. I fetch her from Pietermaritzburg, I drop her off in Pietermaritzburg, I show up for concerts, I show up for school events, I show up. No matter how fucking difficult it is sometimes, I just get on with it. Just show up and see what happens. Because if that's all I can do that day, I do it. You know? My friends, I've built relationships here, are strange. And they're all different, but I would never change them for the world. I've made amends to people that used to be my friends. I'm there for them when they need me, but I know what real friendship is about, and I know where I belong today. You know, I don't belong at the next door neighbor's family. I belong in this family. You know, and as long as I follow this way, I'm sure the fear will subside, and the faith will come through. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for listening. I hope that made sense. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.